Hey, Jesse, looking into 2025, how big of a year is this for you guys?
Hey, Alex, how are you? Yeah, we look. We had a great 2024 together. It was about getting to know each other and then establishing kind of what we wanted to become in the lead up to the 2026 World Cup. And I think people have talked a lot about that there are two trophies out there to be competed for. Certainly, we're excited to be part of that, and we want to push in every way to win as much as we can. But so much of it will still be about establishing exactly how we're going to become who we want to be for 2026. And everything from incorporating a few more dual nationals to incorporating a few more younger talents into the player pool and making sure that we're addressing everything we need so that as by summer of 2026, we know exactly which players we are going to need and who we are so that we can do the best that we can to represent Canada in a home World Cup. That'll be the most important.
We're going to shift to our left-hand side of the back row.
Good morning, Jesse. Andrea Yanes from Deporte Total USA. You're talking about the growth of Canada soccer. I wanted to ask you, the league, the Canadian Premier League, adding more teams, growing, is that an option for you to call players to watch for the national team as you were talking about dual nationals and new players? And also, how can the league coexist with the three MLS teams that are present in Canada now? Thank you.
Yes. The other part of coaching the national team, I think for me, has been really understanding the landscape of what the sport is in Canada. And I've been able to invest a lot of time to understand that more and more. I've challenged that league to get younger. I've seen that there's good coaching in that league and there are good players and good teams. But I also am looking for the right kind of young talent to be thinking about how it can fit within the national team program. And that's not just with the first team, but also with some of the youth teams. The two players that come to mind immediately are Kwesi Poku and Shola Jimo. And both, I think, have incredible talent and potential. And I think will be part of what we're doing as we move forward here in the future with the national team. But I do know that developing the sport in the country, that the CPL will be very vital, and including League One and including private clubs, including academies, the MLS teams, like making sure that we're all unified to figure out ways to provide coaches and players with the best opportunity to develop and grow, and so that the sport can continue to become bigger and bigger. And I think that's, I've used a lot 94 for the U.S. as what 2026 is for Canada. And without 1994, the World Cup, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have had an opportunity to become a professional after college. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to pursue being a professional coach. And what we need to do is make sure that we're providing more opportunities like that for players and for coaches so that in the future we can continue to elevate the game in the country.
We're going to stay to our left, Steve.
Hey, Jesse.
Hi.
What are some of the challenges you've been encountering in filling those friendly dates? Because obviously you don't have to qualify for the World Cup, and you do have Gold Cup and Nations League. But there are some gaps in there, and obviously you want to play higher levels of competition before World Cup. What has been some of the logistical and scheduling challenges?
Yeah. The biggest challenges are that, obviously a lot of teams, when we need matches, are busy trying to qualify for the World Cup. And so we've had to be creative at kind of understanding which teams can be available and then how to create a schedule and then still find ways to play in Canada, to play in different spots in Canada. So there's so many variables, but I feel like we're in a good place. I just had a long conversation with the organization yesterday about the potential for different opponents in the upcoming year. And I think, between some South American, African, European, and Asian opponents that we can create a really good schedule for ourselves. And it's interesting because I want to find the right kind of challenges for our team, to the games that are difficult but give us the opportunity to continue to push the development of what we're trying to achieve as a team, from a style perspective, from a mentality perspective. And again, I think we're on track for some really good opponents, and we're lucky that there's some gaps in scheduling in Europe and in South America where we can get some opponents up here to North America and get some good matches.
We're going to shift to our right coach. Simon will go Simon, David, then come up to the front row.
Hi, Jesse.
Hi.
We've got one of your players in here later on, Jacob. I'm curious about his popularity because he seems to, like, fans really latch onto him both in Nashville and with the national team. And my sort of theory has been he's a bit of a throwback player in that he runs, he's a winger, he runs at people, he's very direct. He doesn't seem like the kind of player we're seeing a lot of coming out of academies. I don't mean that in any way disrespectful, but in a positive way, Do we need more Jacob Schaffelbergs? And is that a fair assessment of him, do you think? Do you think there is something a little bit positively old-fashioned about him?
Well, I just saw him maybe like 20 minutes ago, and you call him a throwback player. He's got a mustache today. So maybe that'll fit into that category. And when you start talking about Jacob, you could see that I get a smile on my face right away because he's just such a likable person. Look, there's a lot of coaches that may look at Jacob Schaffelberg and think, yeah, he's not the most elegant technical player and maybe he's not right for me. Before I coached him with Canada, I'd been watching him in MLS, and he was the kind of player that I like a fearless player who likes to run, who's aggressive, who likes to go at opponents, who gets things wrong but doesn't seem to faze him and doesn't stop. And that relentlessness is something that I think resonates with me. I don't know. I think when you're a coach, you have to have a way, but then you have to, I think, understand how to access the potentials of people. And you have to know that from a style of play perspective, from a cultural perspective, from a personality perspective. And the only way to really do that is to invest in them as people and spend time to get to know them. And so that's the way I coach. That's the way I lead, right? Is not just what's the player, but what is everything about this person and how do we drive them to understand how good they can truly be. And Jacob is, I think, an example of somebody who needs to feel invested in and needs to feel a connection. And if he feels that, he'll do anything for himself, for the team, for the coach, for the program. And that part has been a real pleasure with him. So do we need more players like him? I'd probably say yes, just because of the qualities he has as a person even more than as a player.
Hey, Coach.
Hey.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too.
2 questions. First one, you mentioned Jacob Schaffelberg. We're here in Miami because the U.S. men's national team has a January camp with a lot of MLS players. Should Canada Soccer have a January camp? Would you like to see one? And the second one, you touched on it. Obviously, fans talk a lot about moving the team around Canada a little more. How much of a focus is that of getting, whether it's camps or games in other cities outside of Toronto?
First, we tried to have a January camp. And the stark reality is just financially, we're not in a position as a federation to support a January camp yet without having the kind of opponents to help support that. So we put a lot of effort in the September, October, November time period to see if we could make it happen. And a lot of it was because, like the U.S. has used it over years, this was the blueprint for me too with the Canadian group, is trying to unearth some good young talents that are playing domestically in the CPL and with the MLS, and finding a way to incorporate them into what we're trying to do with the national team, and seeing if they had potential to rise in that group and be considered for what we might be able to include with the first group. So it's a bit of a shame that we weren't able to accomplish that this year, but I'm hopeful that by next year we'll have that in place. Kevin Blue and I have been tireless in trying to do fundraising to help elevate financially what we can achieve with the entire national team program for men's and women. The next part is that I've been calling the Canadian national team the people's team. And I've been very open with the player pool about that we need to do a good job of engaging the Canadian soccer community and the Canadian sports community, and try to turn more Canadian hockey fans, which, by the way, I love hockey and I played hockey growing up, but seeing if we can convert some of them to enjoy soccer as much as they enjoy hockey. And I think we've, in a short time period, been successful with that. And we've made I think the men's national team something that the Canadian public can be very proud of and excited about for 2026. And a big part of that is making sure that we don't just play matches in Toronto. Toronto's been a great host for us, both TFC as a training ground and BMO and the Toronto soccer fan base have been great hosts and an incredible connection for me and for the national team over the last years and months for me. But certainly one thing that has been clear when I've traveled around the country is that they want to have more everywhere wants to have more touch points with some of these great players and with this team. So between playing in Montreal, between playing in Vancouver, and also I'm doing a coaching symposium for the last 12 days of January, where literally we march from Halifax to Vancouver. And I get to know more people. I get to see more coaches. They get to see what we're trying to do with the national team. I'll run a couple sessions. There'll be some video sessions. I'm trying to at least show people in Canada that are curious and are passionate about the game what we're doing with the national team and what we're trying to create. So, look, that's a long answer. Okay, but the point is I'm really taking a holistic 360-degree look at how we can improve the game and help the country be electrified by what this team will become by 2026.
Coach, we're going to stay on our right-hand side, the front row.
Hello, Jesse. Good morning. Fernando Petrocelli from Us.com USA. Canada is a team that create a lot of chances. You have Schaffelberg, Larin, Lairea, David. I remember the game against Venezuela, you create like 8, 9 clear chances, but you only score 1 goal. You are worried about this. How do you change the creative chances translated to scoring goals?
Yeah, you should be on my staff because this has been a big discussion. I've seen the evolution of our team. And, you bring up the Venezuela game. The Venezuela game was the moment where I stood on the sidelines and I said to my staff halfway through the first half, now they get it. It was when all the things that we had been talking about and working toward started to click. And you're right, in that match, we should have been up more. But, I've done this enough with teams to know that creating the chances is the biggest objective, and that the goals will come, and the confidence that they will feel by understanding what their roles are and how to go after the game in all the ways that we want to will lead them to having more confidence in how to finish plays off. But clearly this is still an area of emphasis in making sure in the final third that we can be more clinical. A lot of this comes down to also this is why the best strikers and best players in the world are the best, is because they have a special way of scoring goals. So, we'll keep working toward that, but we know that if we can capitalize more on chances, then we can make life easier on ourselves and continue to progress from a results perspective and be the team that we want to be.
We'll take our final question from David. Please raise your hand. We can get the microphone to you.
Hi, hello, Jesse.
Hello.
Well, looking at your career is, overcoming career, doing a wonderful job with the Red Bull franchise, then Leeds United, Europe. Now you're coaching Canada, and around the corner, you're hosting a World Cup. Looking at, that specific point of view, how you feel, taking a moment and analyzing that Canada is open arms immigration-wise, how immigration is actually helping and giving, a contribution, at least on your plan, on the short term and a long term for Canada team?
Yes. Well, look, what I've learned is they say that the U.S. is a melting pot, and they say in Canada that Canada is a mosaic. And if you look at our national team, you can see culturally that the makeup of the player pool is from many different backgrounds. And this is one of the things I love about our sport is the multicultural aspect of what it means to be a team, a coach. And we've embraced that in Canada, and we will continue to try to find ways to, whether it's dual nationals or players that are playing abroad that have Canadian connections, along with making sure that the group that we have and the players that we incorporate fit with what we're trying to create. Like, this is one of the things that's been fun for me. I'm an American, right? And I've always been a big believer that national team coaches should be from that country, right? And I even said this in the interview process with the Canadian national team. I said, look, if you had a Canadian version of me, I would say hire him. Okay, but one of the things that I came with was you went through it is some experiences at big experiences at clubs, leagues, opponents, and so I've tried to bring that to the Canadian national team and to the Canadian soccer scene as much as I possibly can to share those experiences. But I've also gone on a journey of trying to really determine exactly what it means to be Canadian and what it is to be the Canadian national team and what it means to be the Canadian national team coach. And I've tried to make sure that I've been very open-minded, that I've honored the responsibility that I have, especially with the World Cup coming up, and to make sure in all ways that I'm not a polarizing figure, but I'm a uniting figure. And it helps that the team has done well, no doubt, but I hope that people also appreciate that in all ways I've tried to learn and understand how important it is to make sure that in every way that this team is a perfect reflection of what the country is. And to be fair, that has been a really enjoyable journey for me to be on, and I'm going to continue to try to get to the core of that.
And with that, we are finished. Coach, we
Thank you.
appreciate you for your time today.
Thank you, guys.